Hey yo, what's good everybody? It's your boy Manny, and I'm coming to you live from Elm Park here in Worcester. Beautiful, beautiful Elm Park. Got the kids playing back there behind us. It's a little chilly today, Miss Mo. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little bit chilly. But I'm here with Mr. Mo Bergman, City Councilor at Large for the City of Worcester. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Welcome.
I greatly appreciate it, and I look forward to being able to talk to you about some pressing matters that's been on my mind.
Happy to do it.
Hold on, I just want to make sure we're live. And we are, and I'm sharing it to my own personal platform, which I encourage you all to do out there. Share it to your personal platform, because then you can share it with your family, with your friends, and let people know who the candidates of Worcester are, who they can get out and vote for. And with people like Mo, they're at large, so it doesn't matter where you live in Worcester, you can vote for our at-large candidates.
Right.
So I really thought it was important that I introduce you to the ones that I know. Hold on, I gotta put this back on, just in case. If you guys have questions, please put them in the comments, and if they're appropriate, like, you know, we got to be serious here. I would definitely be happy to ask them. And if there's an audio issue, please let me know in the comments. I'm going to be looking at that too. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. You know, technical difficulties happen without me even knowing sometimes. And with that being said, we're going to move on to the actual reason why we're here, and that's talking to you, Mo Bergman. Before we start, I want to give you the floor. I want you to just tell everybody who may be watching who you are and what your platform has been as you've been serving the Worcester City Council, and how you see the trajectory moving forward into the future.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to the questions. And as we've discussed off air, no question is going to be inappropriate. I'm happy to answer whatever you
And
got.
I didn't give you any questions in advance.
Nope.
Not a one.
It's wide open. We'll wait and see what happens. I've worked hard my time on the City Council. You know, one of my beliefs is that everybody in Worcester should have a fair chance of getting ahead, and I think that's my core values. I help constituents out when they need it. As a child of immigrant parents, I remember vividly how difficult it is to navigate City Hall. So I want to be people's friend at City Hall. I'm not afraid to speak up. And with me, you get what you get. You know what you're getting. I'm not going to tell people something I think they want to hear. I'm going to tell them something that I think is true. And I think that it's important for them to know the truth about certain issues and not to get, misled by happy pictures, because some things are difficult challenges in the city of Worcester. We can't solve every problem. We can try, and that's the best we can do. And this job is difficult because a lot of people, and I hear from the newer candidates, their platform is, I want to make decisions that are good for everybody in Worcester. Well, if everybody agreed with everything we did, our job would be really easy. The difficult part of our job is every decision we make, some people are going to like it and some people aren't. And we have to make the best decisions we can under the circumstances, knowing that we can't please everybody. So what you get with me is the real deal. You know who you're getting. My record is pretty straightforward and not hidden, pretty transparent. And I want to continue to try to help people. I have a way I go about it that may be different or disagreeable to others, but I think the majority of people appreciate it. I've been fortunate to get elected several times, and I'm looking forward to trying to get reelected again.
All right. Well, I'd like to jump right into the deep end, if you don't mind.
Do it.
You started off with talking about your immigrant parents, which I just want to start by saying, I hear you talk about them a lot, and I know of the Paisley grandparents or parents that
yeah, my
they went
grandparents.
through, during the Holocaust, and my heart goes out to them forever. Nobody can even imagine the amount of trauma they had to have experienced, and I would never take that lightly. So I just want to
I appreciate
my feelings towards your parents and your grandparents, and understand that I really feel for what they had to go through, and also what you may have had to go through, just knowing that your parents went through that. It can't be an easy thing. So with that being said, immigration is a real serious subject right now, especially what's going on the federal level. We're not going into that. A little bit. We're going to bring ICE into it a little bit. But, on a federal level right now, immigrants are like on it. Well, they're being attacked. They're being honed in on. In my opinion, my ignorant opinion, I can admit that.
None of us are experts on this.
Right. Just by what I see, it's very reminiscent of what your parents or grandparents may have even gone through, and not as extreme yet, anyway, but very reminiscent of targeting specific folks based off of simple things like skin color or speech pattern, and arresting them and having them have to prove their innocence or citizenship or residentship, you know. How does that make you feel? Like, doesn't it infuriate you that we're doing to our citizens what our parents and grandparents went to Germany and fought for?
Well, a lot of it does. And if I'm going to be perfectly frank, this interview is not going to be the real Mo Bergman saying what I think.
Let me hear it.
So if you were to ask me, and you're asking me now in your own way, how I feel about ICE, I will say this. That I think America is an amazing place that everybody should have the opportunity from other countries that want to be here to be here. I will also say there needs to be processes because no country can have no borders. So we have to have processes. I will also say that the people that have lived here, minded the laws, worked hard, raised their children, even if they're undocumented, they should be allowed to stay here indefinitely. I think every administration, whether it's Democratic or Republican, has missed that opportunity to try to grandfather in, if we can use that word, people that have been here, and whether they're documented or not. Now you got newer people who've come recently, and I think if you are law-abiding, that should not be the focus. But I do think, and this is where we may disagree, that if you came here undocumented and you're committing serious crime, and it's been proven you're committing serious crime, then I have no issue with ICE removing people, because we have to have a country which is safe, and if you can't be here undocumented and not commit serious crimes, I don't think you should be here.
Do you think ICE is the appropriate avenue to going through?
I don't agree with how they're going about.
Don't you think our local police should arrest the criminal, and then the criminal goes to get their due process in court, and then court would then?
I'm all about due process, but we have to always remind ourselves in that discussion that every aspect of due process is not given to people that are not citizens, but we still have to have some level of due process. And I'm not for removing people without that level of due process. I'm not for removing people that have committed no serious crime, but we may differ, and I think we will differ, is if you jump the line and you're not abiding by the law, then I don't have an issue. Now, with ICE itself, I think they're going about it in a way that's problematic, for sure. You know, having your face hidden, not having paperwork, is problematic. But then you've got the other issue where the community, in some respects, some members, don't want Worcester Police to get involved. So there are going to be situations where they come in and nobody knows who they are. And that is problematic. But I think the federal government could be going about this better. But if you ask me, do I think 100% of the time ICE is wrong? I can't say that. And I can say that if you or I lived next to a house and people were doing terrible things and they were undocumented, and ICE came in and removed them, we would probably not only be fine with that, but we would be glad about that.
If I was living next to a house where people were doing terrible things, the last thing I would be thinking about is whether or not they were documented. I'd be thinking about the terrible things they're doing.
Agreed.
And if I'm going to make any action, it's literally based off the terrible things, not whether or not they're documented.
I agree, but when you call the local police and it turns out that those folks are arrested and ICE swoops in,
then it is what it is.
It is what it is.
However, Eureka Street.
Yeah, so
talk to me about that, because that was a whole hot mess, and at the end of the day, those women were vindicated, right?
Yeah, so this is where
they didn't break any laws. They weren't hard criminals.
This is where you and I can agree on this. That is that, again, I don't think people that have alleged minor violations, which these were, should be the target of ICE. I think people with convicted felonies, if there's going to be any target of ICE, that should be the target. So when you go after people on minor cases and they get ultimately vindicated, it does certainly look like you're doing the wrong thing. I hope that's not the majority of cases, but certainly on Eureka Street, it could have been handled better. It should have been handled better. That those people probably should never have been the target of ICE. So I can't make excuses for that, but I can say there's no absolute. And what people in a recent vote on City Council, I think, wanted, some people wanted, is they wanted an absolute commitment from Councilor Bergman that Worcester Police and ICE should never communicate or be involved with each other. And I can never say never on most things. and that's something I couldn't say never about.
So is it more the wording than it is actually taking action? And could you maybe talk to the constituents or even talk to the council to adjust the wording enough where it makes sense for everyone to be able to agree on it so that the constituents are protected, but also you're never saying never, right?
So that's a great point, and I would tell you one of the more frustrating things the last term of the city council, particularly, is that dialogue that you just described that should happen doesn't happen.
Right, why?
Well, because I think
it's up to you guys, ain't it?
It is.
It's your room.
It is, but part of the problem is, I think, the 2-year term kind of creates the tension that everybody wants to be, not everybody, but a lot of people want to outdo the other person in kind of the gotcha moments because an election around the corner. I do think that's what it is.
You don't think that we have a 2-year term and by the time our term is done, like that's the time we have to talk about what we want to do, and by the time our term is done, we can't actually implement it?
We can get things done in 2 years. I'm not saying that, but the minute you get sworn in on a new term, next year's a re-election. So
that's what I'm saying.
Well, I think it's
like
too short.
Everybody's in a rush to get their stuff done.
But
so
I think it's
agree.
too short of a
right?
term, though.
Okay.
Personally, I'm not saying this for me. I would never suggest that this year that we change the term. But I'm saying in the future, people should consider other communities too. Because if you had at least 3 years, you wouldn't have that tension of trying to outdo each other, jockey for the limelight, so to speak, and not communicate with each other on things that should be agreed upon, or at least some level of conversation where you could come up with some sort of resolution. Both sides could give a little bit, and the wording could be such that you'd have a unanimous 10-0 vote. I even said it that night. I said, "This isn't a
You're
message."
lying to my face right now. Has there been a 10-0 vote on anything serious like that?
Yes,
yeah?
it has. Not like that. Not that.
Not that the community.
Not with an intense topic like that.
Yeah.
No. But having anybody disagree, I think we could have worded for 10-0.
Yeah?
Yeah, I do. But we didn't try. It wasn't my order. And having it come out.
But don't you think it's an important order where if it's not coming past, the way it should be, that, then you can step up and lead and say, you know what, this is how it should be done. Let's all get on the same page. Like, could you lead and champion something that you believe if we just worded a little bit different?
Yeah, I can, but again, I think the politics of certain issues doesn't really get out there unless you're in the middle of it. Yeah. And I think an issue like that, which Eureka Street happened in May or June. I think it was
or late May.
I thought it was late May. So we got June, July, August, September, October. So we got 5 months for that issue that had been brought before the city council. I don't believe it's coincidental it's brought before the city council a few weeks before the election. And that's where you and I aren't going to agree.
Not at all.
Because if the intent was for the author of that item to get a unanimous or consensual resolution, there should have been conversation about that weeks or weeks before, not 3 weeks before the election.
Well,
somebody tried to hold it too. Councilor Toomey wanted to hold it, and she was under a lot of pressure not to. Maybe if it had gotten held, maybe we could have resolved the wording of that. What was the rush? ICE is going nowhere. President Trump has 3.5 more years.
I think the rush is people are feeling threatened today, and we want to get them feel as safe as possible as soon as possible.
So let me give you.
And I saw your little eye roll there, but I am a brown Puerto Rican man. Okay, I am Puerto Rican, which means I am a citizen by birthright. Well, I was born in Worcester, but just by being a Puerto Rican, I'll be a citizen anyway. I feel threatened. You know why I feel threatened, Mo? Because in 2019, I was pulled over and I was arrested. And this was in Route 2A in Mass, it wasn't in Worcester. And it was at 11:30 at night. And I was strip searched, I was put in a yellow jumpsuit, never been arrested before in my life, and put on a park and questioned about my cultural identity because my name is Manuel Javier Alvarado. And that alone was enough for them to question me and ask me. One of the questions were, are you a legal resident? Are you a citizen?
Well, that's supposed to ask
Do
that
you
question.
get asked that question?
I don't.
No. So that's what I'm saying. That was before this crackdown on so-called criminal immigrants, where now anybody who has a skin tone darker than a certain melanin percentage gets questioned, gets and then we got to prove our innocence. It's not like guilty until proven
Well, as I
innocent.
said,
It's
I
innocent
don't
until proven
agree.
guilty.
I don't agree with how this is going, how ICE is going about what they're doing in most circumstances. But I do think there needs to be some measures in place that our borders are protected, particularly for people that are committing violent crime. Let me just say something else, which we probably won't agree on. I talk to a lot of people, constituents that are immigrants that came here documented, and the narrative that everybody's afraid of ICE doesn't always apply. There are people that tell me, even brown and black people that have come here, documented, that they have no issue. They did it the legal way. They have no issue. They've done it the legal way.
Right,
And they don't feel like people that jumped ahead that are committing crimes should be given the amount of sympathy, empathy, you want to say, that some people feel they've been given. So again,
So what about the mother and child who go to their citizenship court hearing? Their case is closed because that's where we are. Their case is closed, so now they have no more status here in the United States, and which makes them automatically illegal. They go and they leave that courtroom where the judge is at and get arrested. Those are the criminals we're talking about?
yeah. I told you there's no absolutes. There are examples where the process isn't fair and isn't right, but there are also other examples where the process is fair and is right. And I as a city councilor in Worcester, Massachusetts, I can't make laws or statutes that are going to change that.
I understand.
So, but let me also say something else I said about my parents too, which may be somewhat controversial. That's fine because we're going to be honest with each other. So, a lot of people are concerned this is Nazi Germany. I see that all the time. But at least with my parents' situation and my knowledge, which I think is pretty extensive of the Holocaust from my own personal family experiences, people being arrested were citizens of the country they were in, legally. There is a difference. And my parents who came to America after the Holocaust waited 5 years in miserable conditions to legally come here. So it's hard for me to say that people that jumped the line and are here committing violent crimes and convicted of that, I can't feel sorry for them. I can feel sorry for everybody else, and I've said that. I don't think the process is fair for most people, but I can't say it's not fair for some people.
I don't know if people are asking people to feel sorry. I think we're asking for people in power to make it more fair, more equal, and giving people the constitutional right of due process.
Well, so the constitutional right of due process applies to citizens, but there are elements of due process that apply to everybody.
I'm talking about citizens who get caught up in this immigration deportation loophole.
If there's that
they should have that due process. Why are citizens? I mean, again, this isn't Worcester. We're going to get off the subject
No, it's
in
fine.
a second. But why are those citizens of the United States being deported to Venezuela?
If they're citizens of the United States, they should not be deported.
Right.
But
So how do we prevent that if we're just kind of breaking through our country of brown people and deporting them?
Well, first of all, the courts are a line of defense. And in some cases, the courts do say that the process was improper. But let me put it back on you. How's the Worcester City Council going to change it? And we're not.
Okay.
And we've got streets and sidewalks and crime and funding of schools and taxes and so many other things that you and I probably spent 15 minutes on.
I know.
No, and that's fine. I'll spend as long as you want.
But you want to know why I think it's so important? Because it shows your character. It shows your morals. It shows who you are as a person. And I honestly feel like the global views are even more concentrated on a local level when you're under a microscope. Does that make sense to you?
It does, but...
And with that being said, do you think that all politics are local politics?
Yes.
Which I think I know your answer. Oh, no, I didn't know your answer. I thought you were going to say no.
I do.
Why?
Well, because I think we have a limited amount of time in the council, in our council term, to get things done. And I don't think that we can get a lot of things done when the focus is, on issues that we ultimately have no control over. Having said that, there are issues we can weigh in on, but it's the amount of time we weigh in on them. There are issues that have taken weeks and weeks at the city council, which I don't think were appropriate. Yeah. Short issues, things that we can weigh in on. I have no problem with certain issues if there's some sort of nexus with Worcester, but things that Worcester cannot control at all, I can't spend a lot of time on, not because I don't care about it, because even if I do care about it, many issues I do, I can't change it.
Okay, so that brings me to our city council meetings, okay? Because I've gone there myself with my camera, especially on the days that there are rallies happening, and I see, and I look at you, I'm like, Mo looks so irritated. He looks so frustrated. He looks over this. He don't want all these people in this chamber.
Well, it's not that I don't want the people in the chamber. Let me just stop you. I believe in democracy as much as anybody else does. They have every right to be in that chamber and disagree with me or any of my colleagues or anything any of us are doing. It's the respect issue that bothers me. Right. When you come in and you assume that anybody that's older than 30 or 40 years old is an idiot, which a lot of folks do, and that you know better than everyone else because you're just some sort of old fool, it does irritate you. It does, absolutely does, because it's a level of disrespect. You can have a respectful argument, a disagreement, and bring it up to a level where the ideas are exchanged, and maybe, if it's done in a respectful way, you can convince one another that both sides have something of value to add to the conversation and change people's perspectives. But when you come in and you act like a fool and you're totally disrespectful, you're not changing my mind. So that's what you
So what do you think about the police officers who came in on the DOJ report and acted like a fool and cussed in the chambers and Joe Gavel? All right, what do you think about those guys?
I don't think I want to
know because they're no different than the constituents.
Well, there is a difference.
All right, go ahead, give it to me.
The difference is they're not trying to intimidate my vote. Okay? Now I intimidate me to vote differently. I don't.
No, because you already agreed with them.
Well, there was no vote taken, if I remember. Which particular issue was that?
We
got to refresh.
And I don't even think it was about a vote as much as it was about the
DOJ report.
DOJ report, and basically the Worcester City Council standing with the report and figuring out a way to hold the police accountable that were.
But you're assuming I'm making those uncomfortable faces because I disagree. There are times where I disagree with people, and I'm fine with it. It's because I don't think it's appropriate. It's legal, constitutionally you can do it, but I just think there's a level of disrespect that happens in that chamber sometimes by certain. It's not a lot of people. It's a very small group of people, and I'm sure you know almost all of them. And that level of disrespect is not conducive to changing anybody's minds. And quite frankly, there were times where the level of tension in that room felt as if somebody could get hurt. And that's also a worry.
I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Fine.
So you're protected by a beautiful historic banister.
Yeah.
I'm in the crowd with the rest of them.
And at the time,
so I could feel it.
Manny, at the time, there was no security in the building.
There was
okay, but there was nobody security in the building letting people in.
No.
So anybody could walk in with a weapon at the time.
No one did.
That's not my point. My point is when you do, safety issues, you're concerned about what could happen, not what did happen. So at that time, anybody could have walked in with a knapsack, something in their pocket, whatever, and caused a problem.
But it seems to me when there are those high tension meetings and people are getting loud and they're stopping, you know why they're doing that, right?
I don't always know why.
Why do toddlers do that?
Well, because they want your attention. They're
not being heard.
Well,
and so people are feeling, and if you think they're being heard, then the actions of the city council aren't showing the constituents that they're being heard.
So for the 10 years I was on the city council and I disagreed with people and they didn't act this way, you're telling me that they all felt that they were heard. It's just a few groups of people that act this way. It's because I'm not buying that.
Everybody felt they were being heard. I feel that the people who show up and I'm not waking up on a Tuesday morning saying, I'm going to go and make Mo's night music. I'm going.
Well, there are people that do.
I'm sure. I'm sure that there are some people.
You and I both know
there.
some of them.
I'm sure that we're not going to go there. Just because that's not what
that's fine. I agree.
I want to know about you and how you're handling things and how you.
I'm there every night. I don't bail out of the chamber because of the heat. Let me just be clear.
I don't know. That's what it looks like to me.
No, I'm there.
Whenever I was there for the rallies and stuff like that, once it started getting loud and once Joe's banging the gavel, nobody's fighting for the gavel. I see everybody get up. The same everybody.
Yeah, not just
the ones who don't get up is Tell Christian.
Because they're not worried about the crowd because the crowd's not hostile.
Why are you worried about the crowd? They're not hostile towards you.
I disagree with that.
As an individual, I think they're mad at the.
Manny, were you there the night when people were, talking in German tongue and snorting pig noises, which is classically anti-Semitic, and saying other things, and asked for my name. It had to do with, well, I'm sure, the discussion about Hamas and Israel and the resolution. Which night? Yeah. Were you there? Because if you don't think that people are trying to intimidate me, then I disagree with you.
I think I was, and as far as like snorting noises, first of all, for me, that's an attack for the police, not anti-Semitic. But that's not for me to say because I'm not Jewish.
So if I walked in with a noose,
yeah,
and a black person got offended, which they should, that's okay. But as a Jew, which characteristically and historically, and I'm trying to be fair to you because I know, nor should you know the history of every aspect of anti-Semitism. A pig in Judaism is a classic example of anti-Semitism. Jews can't eat pigs, and then other people, want them to. So it's fine. I'm not. You don't have to.
I didn't know that. I always thought that pigs, we call cops pigs.
I don't call cops.
I know. I said that wrong. But people call cops pigs. I mean, you know what? As a matter of fact, sometimes I do because I've seen them act like pigs. So let me just be real with it.
But let me say this. I don't care if somebody
you act like a pig. I'm gonna call you a pig.
If somebody calls me a name, I'm not so sensitive that I'm gonna leave the chamber. When you saw all of us leave, you never saw me leave separately. All of us left.
I did see everyone leave together.
It's because as a group we felt that the crowd was getting out of control and somebody could get hurt. Listen, the thing that happened with Charlie Kirk, whether you like Charlie Kirk or dislike, there are people out there for political purposes will commit violence. And you know what? We get
the only violence I've seen in City Hall in the past couple of years is the one that was. We're not going to put names out there, but the one that the spray paint thing. That was the only thing I've ever seen, and that wasn't from the crowds that were there. That was from somebody else who is very friendly with y'all, if I may say. Who clearly thought he had an entitlement. Absolutely. Yeah. Clearly he had an entitlement, and he's really not friendly like that on that level. We're colleagues because we're both journalists, independent journalists in a specific way. But this gentleman. My point is, he wasn't there with the rally to hurt you guys.
I don't condone any form of violence. It doesn't matter who it's towards. Even if it's towards somebody that despises me. I would never condone violence. So I don't want to give you the impression that I think some people should get away with it and some people should. The building now has more security. Yeah. It has metal detectors. And I would think it would be a lot less likely, if I'm fortunate enough to get reelected and some of my colleagues as well, that we would leave the chamber as readily as we did. But in the past, when we left the chamber, it was because there was very little security as far as metal detectors and people checking bags. And the crowd, I'm sure you've been in situations where you sense something bad could happen. Even if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean you stick around and wait for it to happen. I've got a wife and kids. I love my job. But is it worth getting hurt? No, it's not worth getting hurt.
I was there. I don't feel like there was any indication that you guys were under threat of being hurt.
So we can all, but I wasn't just me. So there's 5 of us. Yep. So if you say that we all, were wrong, that's your opinion.
No, I don't
respect that.
I'm not trying to say you were wrong. I'm just saying from my perspective, where I was, I don't feel like the tension was so high where people were like on the banisters, trying to jump over there to hurt you. They were staying in their seats. Yes, they were standing. Yes, they were stomping. Yes, they were chanting. But they weren't.
Well, we're gonna disagree.
Trying to get you.
We're gonna disagree on that. People have different perceptions.
I appreciate
again,
that.
I'm not somebody who's afraid of people criticizing me, but I'm not going to be a fool and stay there if I think people have the potential for harming me.
So one of my questions are, and I get self-preservation, but you did, in a sense, sign up for this. You signed up for your constituents to be able to speak to you when they felt like they needed to get something off their chest and hope that you can advocate for them. Because I think that's what I don't think people go into City Hall to have you solve the world's problems. I think they go into City Hall because they're representative of the city that they think can advocate for them. Right? No. So with that being said, I did have a question I wrote down that I really wanted to answer, which is why should the public believe that you support free speech when it seems like you have pushed for less access to city council?
I disagree with that.
Which, I mean, the security measures in place have even made me not feel comfortable to want to go. And a lot of times when people are speaking to you, and I have it on video, and it's not just you alone. I've seen Kate do it, I've seen Candy do it, and maybe you've seen others that I haven't been able to catch. But you know, people are like, it's all, you're in your phone, but it's not like you're in your phone because you're doing something as much as it is like when someone's speaking to you, it's just a way to like tune them out, is what it feels like.
I've seen that on Facebook, and I've seen certain people post it. Look, we're there for hours at a time at city council meetings. Sometimes the public portion is quick, sometimes it's 2-3 hours. We all have family members, we have private phones. You know, sometimes we get messages from family members, sometimes we get messages from friends. I have another profession too. I try to limit it, but there are times where I have to go on it. And you know what? I know doctors who take it into the operating room with their cell phone. So it's not as if, it's not, well,
please let me know there. I don't want to go there.
What I'm saying.
Wake up and have my belly ringing.
Hopefully it's minor surgery. But the point is, it's not that I intentionally do that because I'm trying to not listen to somebody. It's because I have other things going on in my life, and we're into the meeting 2 or 3 hours. You're welcome. We're into the meeting 2 or 3 hours. I check my phone. I've got kids that travel, check a flight, see if, you know, sometimes my wife will call me, what time's the meeting over, or text me, I should say. What bothers me about that narrative, okay, is that other people are on their laptops doing the exact same thing. And it's the only the people on cell phones. They seem to be of a certain political bent that gets pointed out on Facebook by some people. And let me say something else even further that bothers me. Is we got a counselor that doesn't even show up. You're questioning me about being tough and, you know, standing up to people and taking the job, knowing what the pitfalls are. We've got a counselor who claims to be afraid to come to the chamber, but won't even participate by Zoom, and gets paid for it. And nobody on your end as media, and I'm not picking on you, I'm picking on everybody. Nobody thinks that that's a problem, but if you're on your phone checking messages for a few minutes of a 5-hour meeting, that's a big issue. To me, that is total hypocrisy.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought two can do it virtually.
They can. They don't.
And I thought they did.
They don't.
Whenever I'm there, I see that name pop up on the screen.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I should say if they do. They don't vote on anything. So if they're in there as a spectator, they're not participating. You know, we have 11 people because an odd number is important.
Right.
Make decisions.
Right.
Right. 10 doesn't work. Let me just say something else too about that. Maybe that's part of why I'm bringing it up tonight. I spent probably 2 to 3 hours Wednesday night filling in for that particular counselor, and I fill in for that particular counselor a lot on committees, because committees are made up of 3 people for the same reason. We want to have an odd number so that we don't have a tie, right? That person not showing up doesn't only affect Tuesday night on city council, it affects committees. But nobody wants to talk about that person collecting a paycheck and possibly benefits when they don't even show up. What they want to talk about is, why did you walk away when the crowd, you know, was just discussing a certain issue? Okay, fair conversation, but at least I'm there.
Okay. All right. So let's go on then to as far as I said, like the security measures. You don't feel like that's? I mean, obviously you don't feel, because we just talked about that. But I'm saying I feel like it's kind of counterproductive and inviting the community and having them feel.
So I want to answer that question. First of all, part of the reason for that security is not just the city council. The employees in that building wanted security, because whether it was the clerk's office or the tax office, people come in there at emotional times. They could be coming to the clerk's office to get married, and an ex-spouse is showing up upset that they're marrying somebody else. Or it could be somebody at the treasurer's office whose house is about to get a tax title foreclosure. So whenever you have emotional situations, people are vulnerable. There were plenty of people in that building that were also demanding security. It made no sense. And the fact that it's inconvenient, there is a level of inconvenience, but I don't have the same complaint when somebody goes to Polar Park and their bags get checked, go out to metal detector. We live in a society now that it's different.
And I think Polar Park, the reason why people don't complain is because it was open like that, right? It was instituted.
So we have
like
changed
that.
it. City Hall has changed, but society has changed.
Yeah. I hear you.
Society has changed. I'm sorry that it has. I wish we could go back to the days.
But it seems like a response to the rallies.
I think the rallies expedited it, for my honest opinion. But I've been talking about security in that building years before this rally. If we go back to the clerk's office, I think we could find records. So I think the rallies, not the rallies themselves, the behavior at the rallies expedited this, I would say. That's just my own opinion.
Yeah.
but this was inevitable. You know, I have family members in Washington, D.C. Let me just go aside. They remember when they walked, they're elderly, they walked into grocery stores and ran into President Harry Truman shopping with no security detail at all. The world has changed. Now you've got armies of people protecting the president. I'm not suggesting we're worthy of protection like the president, any president of the United States, but I am saying society has changed and there should be some level of protection. And that, by the way, people that come to participate, they should also feel as if there's more protection for them. When you go on an airline, it's inconvenient to go through security since 9/11, but when you get on that plane, I think you feel like I do. Everybody's been checked and now I know I'm safe. Well, when you go in as a participant, as a city council meeting, the very least you know that people sitting next to you, whether they agree or disagree with you, aren't going to have a weapon on you. So that's my argument. Some people feel safer, some people don't. I don't disagree. The parking spaces are problematic. I do feel bad that people that have handicapped issues don't seem to have the parking spaces they used to have. And I do think that needs to be corrected. And I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm not saying it can't be tweaked, but I think for all the reasons I mentioned, it's the way it is now than the way it was before.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that answer, and I'd like to move out of City Hall for a moment. I want to move out to the community.
Yeah.
Sorry, hold on. I gotta go back here. Okay, so I'm in the community all the time. One of the foundations of my platform is to be out here at community events, to be able to show people that aren't able to make it, whatever, what's going on in the community.
I see you post a lot of that.
Everywhere. And I also see you tuning in. I appreciate that. Thank you for your support. But what I don't see often, to be honest with you, is I don't see you outside with us. I don't see you going to the events. I don't see you going to the Village Worcester. I don't see you going to the street namings. We just had one for the late great Mr. Bill Coleman, who loved you guys. He loved City Hall. He loved civic engagement. I think every single city councilor should have been there. Not only that, we had a street naming for the great Daniel Gaskin, part of the Caribbean Festival. We had a street naming for Mr. Jaime Flores Sr., and you weren't at any of that.
Yeah, so all of us have to juggle other things in our lives, and we try to make time for as many things as we can. If they're held during the day, it's harder for me as an attorney to take away that time. I don't pick and choose based on any bad topic like where they're from or who they are. I pick and choose based on the time that I have. I do go to a lot of neighborhood meetings in a lot of neighborhoods that have a variety of people, and particularly some neighborhoods that have high number of minority residents that show up at the meeting. So if the implication, and it's fine if that's what the implication is, that I kind of show up for certain people, not others, I deny that, and I don't believe it's true.
It does seem that you don't show up for certain demographics. Like there's a lot of black and brown events that I've been to, and I don't see you at. Maybe please educate me, teach me where you have been. Maybe I can show up to those. Maybe I'm not at those events.
So let me just
Black Excellence Gala. There was so many people there.
So let me just give you. Well, first of all,
the Village Worcester has events. I never see you at these.
No, it's okay. You're gonna give me a chance to answer.
I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
No. I'm not saying you're not. I'm saying I want you to do.
Yeah.
So if you go to the second floor of City Hall, next to the clerk's office, you'll see a plaque dedicated to the first black city council. Okay. And Mr. Scott. That plaque got there primarily because of my work. And you can ask the people that you'll see at Lincoln Square a monument, people of color, World War II. That got done. Bill Coleman was very helpful in that too, but predominantly by City Councilor Moberg. So the fact that some people say that I pick and choose who I like and who I don't like is BS. I pick and choose when I can go based on my schedule, and a lot of times I can't go to events that I would like to go to because my schedule doesn't allow for it. If people want to draw conclusions and try to connect dots that don't exist, I can't stop that. But I could just tell you that I can't be somebody that's not committed to everybody and have been that involved in those two particular monuments being rebuilt.
Okay.
Just can't happen.
I appreciate the monuments. I do. Speaking of monuments, I'm going to bring this up, and I always do, and I think it's the most despicable, disgusting thing that Worcester backs, and that is that Christopher Columbus statue that sits in front of Union Station. You want to know why? Roll your eyes all you want.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not rolling my eyes at you. I'm rolling my eyes at that being the single most problematic statue.
No. It's one of the disgusting things for me that I have to look at every day on my way to work. I'm a Puerto Rican, and my ancestors were committed. He committed atrocities on them. He raped, he pillaged, he committed genocide. It's factual, and we have a statue to admit. And then we want to have the Italian Americans in Worcester getting all up in arms. Oh, that's our culture. I'm sorry, but the Italian Americans, according to my history, said no to Christopher Columbus on his voyage, which is why he went to Portugal, who also said no. Then he went to Spain, who funded it. So how is that Italian American culture when Spain's the one who funded it? He actually ended up bumping into the wrong rock, thinking he was in India, which is why we now call Native Americans Indians.
So
I'm ready for your answer. Go ahead. When are we taking the statue down? That's what I want to know. Because I know you have big influence on that.
The statue should be discussed between the Italian community and everybody. Sorry?
Dismantled?
I said it should be further. I'll get there.
Okay.
Get there, fine.
Right.
It should be discussed between the Italian community and any other community that's offended by it, and they should work out a resolution so that no side feels that they've been hurt by this. A lot of people in the Italian community feel that for generations they were picked on as Italian American immigrants, and they were.
By who?
Well, the notion of Columbus Day came about not because Christopher Columbus was to be revered, because a number of Italian people were killed because they were Italian, and the president at the time, and the name escaped who he was, decided we have to find a way to make sure Italian Americans feel that they're welcome to. So a lot of Italian Americans like that day because it's their heritage. And a lot of people like you, and your heritage, conflicts with that. And I can't be the one in a situation like that, nor should the city be the one saying you're right and you're wrong. What I can do is I can say, work it out, get together, not on Indigenous Person Day or Columbus Day, whichever you call it, but work it out during the year so that nobody's offended by that statue. Maybe it's another statue that gives the other narrative that you're giving. Maybe that statue is removed entirely.
Well, mine isn't narrative, mine's history.
That's
it's
fine.
factual history.
It's fine.
So
let me just say it differently. Maybe it's the facts that you present, your side presents, and then it helps kind of describe what's going on there. Maybe the statue should be removed, but it's not the city council that should say it should be removed. And I don't want to do anything to hurt anybody on either side.
Is that public land?
That is public land, but here's
This is controlled by who?
it might be
The city of Worcester.
but it might be WRA, but Redevelopment Authority, but it might be the city of Worcester. Either way.
But you guys would have influence, maybe not authority, but influence.
But here's another factor. I was told, never seen the language, so I can't verify. The person who donated it made it a condition that it stay in that location. So to undo that, you'd have to contact the building. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not making excuses. I think there should be conversations about how to resolve the animosity, the sensitivity, the offensiveness that you're describing to you and others. At the same time, respecting Italian Americans' pride.
So I have a serious question. Yeah. It's going to sound facetious.
No,
I want to apologize in advance.
Go for it.
Please don't get
I think I
offended.
know what's coming.
But what if I was German?
Yeah.
And I put or Austrian?
Yeah.
Hitler's my hero.
Yeah.
And I put a statue up in front of Union Station. You'd be okay with that?
Well, here's the difference. In Germany, there are statues. In Eastern European countries, there are monuments to the to evil. And in some ways, it's important to keep those monuments because you can at least have a conversation about what they represent. If you want to go on to a different topic, do I think a lot of the Civil War generals should have been removed?
Absolutely.
Okay, who's going to talk about it?
Good.
It's as if that never happened.
If we put in the history books, which we talked about in history class in elementary, middle, and high school, the actual real history, not the whitewash versions, that's where and how we can talk about them. We don't need statues taking up space that kids got to walk by and look up
So let me
to
tell you,
this supreme figure, right?
I'm not saying that those figures should be respected or worshipped. I'm not saying that at all, don't get me wrong. I'm saying that history is history, and sometimes horrible history has to be explained. The best way to explain it is to see symbols. But let me just give you my example. Stay on this topic and move on.
Yeah.
When I go to Eastern Europe, which I have multiple times because my parents used to, I visit the concentration camps my parents were. Do I wish those concentration camps didn't exist? You might say sure, because they remind me of terrible things that happened. I'm glad they're there, because sooner or later people are going to say that never happened. And while they're there, I could point to them and say, yes, here they are, this happened. Yeah. So when you remove history, you create a scenario where people are going to deny it even happened because there's no tangible proof. So good luck with the textbooks, but I think
Listen, and I feel you, because I don't think plantations should be removed, because we should be reminded that American
But there are people that do think it should be removed.
They should be there as educational things, just like the concentration camps. I completely agree. But we don't need monuments honoring and celebrating people who were evil.
But don't you think we need to explain a time where we didn't appreciate what the Civil War was all about, and we tried to kind of water down slavery, and these monuments were built at a time to appease the South so that they didn't feel as if slavery...
You know what I would love? I would love to see a lot more monuments of black men who fought in the Civil War for their freedoms.
I agree. Well, you've got Boston on the common.
Boston, as a matter of fact.
Beautiful monument. I love that monument. Yeah, I love that. I love that monument. Absolutely. I just told you I was helpful in getting 2 monuments in Worcester related to people of color. I'm all for that. It's not either war.
So, and we're going to move on now, because I do appreciate the monuments and your efforts there, and I'm not even being sarcastic there. But what I'd appreciate more is for you to be amongst us while we're here, while we're alive. Not posthumously give me a monument. I want you to be here at our events, celebrate with us, be with the people, hear what the people got to say to you, hear what your constituents want to say, because you're an at-large, which means every single person in the city, regardless of what part of the city they're in, are your constituents, and they need access. They deserve access to you, don't you think?
Absolutely.
They voted you in, right?
Absolutely. And as I said to you, I don't feel that I pick and choose based on anything other than my schedule, but I will tell you that I have no issue hearing what you say. And if that's the perception out there, then that's the reality.
Well, I mean, that's the perception amongst myself and my viewers, who are mainly composed of the black and brown community. There are a lot of other communities. I thank you so much. I appreciate your support out there, because obviously you support me. There's a lot of people who aren't directly.
I'm not somebody who's going to say that everything you and I have discussed, I'm right and you're wrong. Right. If that's the perception, all I can say is, if I'm fortunate to get reelected, I will do better to make sure that people in the community see me more often. I'll try to juggle my schedule better so that the perception isn't.
Or maybe just make it more fair, not even better, but put more equity into equity.
It's fine.
You know what I'm saying?
A lot of the events I go to is evening.
Yeah.
Because my schedule is cleared up. I don't have to be in a courtroom. I don't have to meet with the client.
So with that, I want to touch on one little thing.
Sure.
The Latino festival that didn't happen this year. Do you go to that ever? Because I've never seen you there, and I go all the time.
It's on a Saturday.
It is on a Saturday. It used to be Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Why? Can we expand it back to that?
Well, let me just say something that all my colleagues know. And I think it's
you don't work Saturdays?
I don't work Saturdays. I'm observant.
You're all entitled to take a day off. No,
I'm observant in my faith.
Yeah.
Friday night and Saturday, I shut down for the most part. And a lot of the events you're describing, where people in the community may not see me, is exactly for that reason.
Okay.
So if it's on a Saturday, chances are, unless I can walk to it, which I can do, I generally won't be. And that's across the board. I don't care whose event it is.
All right. So I'm going to start sending you emails of more black and brown events that I go to, and I hope to see you show up and hang out with me.
That's it. I can take criticism. If that's the perception, then it's reality. So, to the people that believe it, and I'll do better.
All right. And one last question I had, as far as my written questions goes, is why should the public believe? Hold on, wrong one. Sorry. The DOJ report.
Yep.
You ready for this one?
Yep,
I know you've been
ready.
waiting for me to come at you with this one.
I don't know.
So the Department of Justice report, it came out, it implicated a lot of wrongdoings by the Worcester Police Department, and I believe them. I believe everything that's in there, because why would it be written if it wasn't true? And I also have an experience, 41 years of experience growing up in Brickwood Valley, which you know we've had a lot of experience with police over there, especially in the 90s, right? I've lived in Plumley Village. I've lived in a lot of places where there's a lot of police presence and a lot of anti-gang activity by the gang unit, who really comes in and bullies people at the end of the day. They go way far above and beyond their call of duty to come in and really harass the people in these marginalized areas. Okay, I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen people get hemmed up. I've seen them take their money, their drugs, whatever they have. I'm not saying these people are completely innocent, but the police definitely take advantage of them, do whatever they got to do, let them, bust them up a little bit, throw them in the back of the paddy wagon, take them out, drive off, and it never really gets even to the police station at some points. Now this was back in the 90s, and I've seen it even happen on camera today in 2000s. The pastor, you know what I'm talking about, the video with the pastor, the video of the guy in the stretcher. Yes, he spit on a cop, but as a cop, is it our duty once we get spit on to punch somebody in the face, especially when they're going through a mental health crisis? Okay, so don't sit, not you, sorry, I'm saying in general, especially those cops that showed up and tried to argue that the DOJ report was a hoax and it was full of crap, right? Don't sit there and tell me when we've all seen with our own eyes how the Worcester Police Department and police departments throughout the entire country treat people. Why wouldn't we give the Department of Justice report more grace? And why, when the constituents come in and ask you to stand on business and hold these people accountable, are we pushing back?
Well, a couple things of what you said that I wanted to do. First of all, not every constituent feels that. There's a whole boatload of constituents out there that feel that although the Worcester Police Department or any group is not without people that, are problematic or shouldn't be there, by and large, it's a difficult job and they do a good job. So it's not that everybody feels as if they've been taken advantage of by the Worcester Police Department. I don't hear that from everybody. I don't hear it from a lot of people. I do hear it. You're saying it right now. But I don't think it's a majority view, so I'm just going to say that. Having said that, that doesn't mean we shouldn't do better, and it doesn't mean we can't do better. I don't dismiss the DOJ report, but I will tell you as an attorney who believes in the Constitution, I find it interesting and somewhat ironic that people that will be willing to give everybody else the benefit of the doubt, the presumption of innocence, will say that this report must be true. I'm not saying it's not true. I don't know, and we'll never know, because the people that were the informants, so to speak, their information can never be revealed. So you have a situation where you're accusing people without the accusers being cross-examined or questioned, and you're accepting it as the truth. So that's problematic to me as somebody who believes in fairness.
Yeah.
Now, you said you got busted up by a policeman asking this question.
I've
you.
seen
But
it.
you got stopped and asked questions like you weren't legal.
No, I've got arrested.
You got arrested, even worse.
And I had to get bailed out, and then I had to go through a whole year of proving my innocence before the case was thrown
I'm
out.
glad you used those words.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have had to prove your innocence. The presumption is you're innocent. And I say the police deserve the same presumption until otherwise. That's my problem. They're presumed guilty by people that informed on them whose information we don't even know. I'm not saying they said something that wasn't true, but I am saying that in this country there's a presumption of innocence. You should have a right to confront your accuser, and that doesn't exist in this report.
Okay, so then that brings me to my next question, which is, for 10 years you have publicly said you would never support a civilian review board. Yet we have numerous examples where the police were proven publicly wrong and the system in place didn't catch it, didn't investigate it, didn't do anything about it. They just got to continue on with their policing the police activities, where the police are like, oh, nothing to see here. You know, at best we get, oh, it's just a bad apple, but we're fixing that. And the incidents that came to light.
I have constantly said, I didn't mean to.
No,
I have constantly said, and I will continue to say that with this interview, explain why, I hope. But I don't know if it goes back 10 years, but maybe it does.
So my question on that is, how is your position one that actually supports the community when the community is asking you to investigate these particular things, and you're saying we're not even going to investigate it, and we're not going to implement a civilian review board?
I'm not saying we're not going to investigate.
But that's what we're hearing.
Okay, so when you say the community wants a civilian review board, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. Are you defining the community as Worcester wants the civilian review board or a specific community?
I'm defining Worcester.
I don't hear as often as I hear more people. So maybe communities that you're more close to are telling you that. That's fine.
I think there's more people that I see than you see. And the reason why I say that is because you see voters. I see everybody.
Well, I try to see everybody too. A lot of people don't vote for me, and
I know.
And I still go out of my way to treat them no differently than anyone else. But let me just say this: the same Municipal Research Bureau that came up with a recommendation for civilian review board. Well, maybe it wasn't. I think they were involved in a recent study that was done. It may have been the chamber. I could have confused it too. But the overwhelming percentage of people in Worcester are confident in working with Worcester Police. But let me get into my answer.
Okay.
Because that's what I'm looking at. And I don't think they're asking people of a certain race or a certain demographic. If they are, then it's not a fair statement to say the majority of people support the Worcester Police Department. But I think it was around 60%, and I'd have to believe that that study was fair unless proven otherwise. It's a chamber, maybe they...
All right, let me ask you this then. Do you believe 100% of Worcester's population is involved with the Chamber of Commerce?
Not at all, but I go to crime watches, which I was about to say. And as I said earlier, a lot of the crime watches have a great mixture of demographics. And there's usually a police officer there, somebody from the city manager's office, somebody from the code office. The overall comments I hear from everybody is that it's support of the police. But let me get to the civilian review board, because I think that's the answer you deserve if you're asking. A couple things, civilian review board. Now we have a post commission. So the post commission, in my opinion, does the work of what a civilian review board would do.
Okay.
It has the ability to take the police job away from a particular police officer who's not performing the duties in appropriate or constitutional way. Second of all, we have two members of the city of Worcester on that civilian review board, including one who's on the post commission, including a beloved pastor in Worcester who everybody will acknowledge is as fair as fair can be, that's the Reverend Talley. Okay? So we have Worcester representatives on the post commission, which I think is 9 people, and they're making decisions about the conduct of police officers. So in my opinion, the civilian review board would be duplicitous in what post to do. Second of all, it's not my only explanation. And that didn't exist 10 years ago.
From the post, there's numbers that I heard. Only about 5% of complaints are actually accepted and reviewed.
I don't know.
95% of people that put in complaints against the police are wrong or lying?
I don't know. I'm not a person making those decisions.
So, but I think that's why it really matters that we have more of a civilian review board that can actually review all the complaints and look into all the complaints. Don't you think?
Well, let me finish my answer.
Okay.
I don't think a civilian review board is a good idea. So number one, you got post. Okay. Number two, who's going to be on the civilian review board? It's going to be highly politicized, and you're never going to find people that are just neutral about police. You're either going to find people that are supportive of police or people that are not supportive of police. So I don't know how you would feel.
Then how do juries work?
Because they're randomly picked, and there's no other way.
That's how we do civilian review.
No, it'll never be. There's not a board in the city, Manny. Manny, there's not a board in the city.
There's a will, there's a way. Remember COVID? What did we do during COVID? We found homes for the homeless. We found food for the hungry. We found laptops for every student in the city.
There's no way a civilian review board will be objective. Every board in the city has some level of politics where people advocate for people being the board. I'm still not done though. There's still more I want to say about the civilian review board. So how do you get objective people? Okay. Third of all, every board or commission that I'm aware of that judges peers, the board or commission is made up of people in the same profession. So the U.S. Supreme Court has said that in cases where the judge commits misconduct, that you have to focus on the circumstances at the time the officer was faced with those circumstances. You can't look backward. There's no such thing as hindsight. So how would me or you or anybody that's never been a police officer sit in judgment when a police officer says, I felt as if that lump in his pocket was a gun, and it turned out it wasn't. It was a cell phone. How are we going to judge when he shot the guy? God forbid. But let's say that was a scenario. How are we going to judge that when we're not the person wondering if they're going to get shot by somebody who's got a bulge in their pocket that looks like a... I don't know how we judge that. But let me go one step further. Okay? And that is a civilian... the Justice Department report, the DOJ report, that you referred to, that we're talking about now, that everybody knows about, that's watching this, made a ton of recommendations. I think there was 19, if I remember. Okay? Not one of those recommendations recommended a civilian review board. If that report was as thorough as many people believe and pushed the narrative about how Worcester can correct the public confidence in the Worcester Police Department, why did they omit a civilian review board? I can't imagine they would have unless they also realize that that's not the solution. What is the solution, in my opinion? To have a good chief at the top, and I think we do, Chief Sasser, to engage the public more, which I think he's doing, to look at those 19 critiques and start implementing procedures to eliminate those critiques, and to exchange, communication with each other. Be at the ballpark when kids are playing basketball. Go to neighborhood community. Don't feel as if you're separate from the community. And also make sure the hiring, the Worcester Police Department reflects the actual community. So there has to be more people of color, more women, more people that fit in the LGBTQ community that represent the Worcester Police Department. I think they're making inroads in that. We certainly have DEI officers, checking into that, but it's not going to get fixed overnight. I don't think the civilian review board's the answer, and I've given you 4 reasons why. We could disagree on that, but I'm giving you my explanation.
No, I appreciate that, and I think that's fair enough. You've definitely given me more of an answer than I expected, and I appreciate it, because it's not about whether or not we agree. It's about who you are and giving our audience a chance.
I've thought through it long and hard. Believe me, these issues, as I started off in the beginning, these issues were easy. Everybody would like every vote we take, and we would love our job every day without worrying about who we're upsetting.
Okay.
But some days we know we're going to upset people because we have to make tough decisions.
Yeah.
We can't please everybody.
And lastly, there's one big pressing matter, 2 big pressing matters in the city that I'm curious on what you've been doing, and because you've been working on this for a long time, but 10 years, you should have something going by now.
12 years.
12 years. What we can expect? Well, I don't count the first 2 minutes.
Okay, let
Right?
it correct.
Yeah.
That's fine.
What we could expect if you were to be reelected to hopefully happen in the future, and not in so many more years. Like, we need it now. All right, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. We have way too big of a homeless epidemic in the city. We have way too big of a drug-afflicted persons epidemic in the city. And all I keep seeing is homeless people and people who are afflicted by drugs being pushed around out of sight of wherever we're doing an event or a ballpark or a new gentrified apartment complex. They're just pushed here, pushed there, pushed everywhere, but nothing is really being done. You just, for whatever reason, maybe you can help me understand, why is the RMV not being utilized to house some of these people during the winter? What are we doing to help our most vulnerable people in our population?
I think we are doing things, but you're talking about 2 problems that no other city in America has been able to figure out. Now, I'm not making excuses that Worcester shouldn't be trying, maybe be in the lead of other communities and having solutions. But if these were easy problems, other communities would have solved them. These are difficult problems. So homelessness population, you're not dealing with people that are homeless for one particular reason. I've been in the encampments. I've been there when I've had discussions with a lot of people in the homelessness encampment. There are difficulties. A lot of people that are in a relationship don't want to go to a shelter because if it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, they have to be separated. People that are drug addicted often don't want to go to a shelter because they won't have access to the drugs. Some people have all their possessions in a tent and they're afraid of leaving those possessions to anybody because that's their world. It could be pictures of their parents, whatever. So not everybody wants to go to a shelter, and there's mental health reasons, and there's other legitimate mental health reasons still legitimate. There's other legitimate reasons in addition to mental health issues why people don't want to go to shelters. We need to have more shelter space, agreed, but we also, and this is something that I know will come across controversial because it has already, but I do believe this to be true. We also have to have communities around us step up to the plate. We can't financially spend the resources to take care of homeless populations from other communities when they spend no money to take care of that. We don't have it. Yeah. So when you have people from Rutland or Spencer or Paxton coming to Worcester, at some point those communities have to step up to the plate. And I think at the state level there should be some sort of responsibility that either you take responsibility for the homeless population in which community, or you contribute to the city of Worcester or wherever other community is taking care of that population so that they financially can do it. The demand for services here will never meet the supply. And so more than 50% of the people that are homeless, according to those that know, are not from Worcester. So that doesn't mean we don't take care of them. That's what people say, oh, you don't take care of people that aren't from Worcester. Of course, they're human beings. But we have to have some process in place where we take care of as many people as we can. Other communities step up and do that. As far as the drug addictions, I'm no expert, but I know we've spent more, we've hired more people, and we've had an excellent person, Dr. Castile, that was involved in that. And I don't think we've made a lot of inroads there either. And I don't have the easy answers to that. So So what am I going to do? I'm going to continue to look into what other communities are doing. I'm going to continue to see why we can't have properties like Department of Motor Vehicles, why colleges, in lieu of taxes, can't let us use a building that might be unoccupied, why public buildings in the summertime, like some of our high schools that aren't used in the summer, why we can't have shelters in there. I'm going to continue to ask those questions, but at the same time, the communities around us have to step it up. And with the drug addiction issues, I don't have an easy answer. I'm not a medical person in the sense of knowing how to solve those problems. We do need more places for people with drug addictions. I think a lot of the housing that exists for people transitioning from addiction to getting back into the mainstream lifestyle, those work well. Housing first for those folks. And continuing to have programs to keep people away from going back to the drug addictions. But I also think we have to keep, a lot of the people away from the susceptibility of getting hooked on drugs again. And that means you have to use policing methods to keep people that are dealing off the street. And a lot of people get offended by those policing methods. So again, there's no way to please everybody. You brought up if any council candidate or elected official running for re-election has the solutions, I want to hear them.
Well, I'm going to ask every single one of you.
But here's the difference.
I want to know what everybody
Here's
thinks
the difference between me and some of them. Some of them are going to look in that camera and come up with a BS answer that doesn't work. Because if something worked, one city or town in America would have come up with it already.
And then I'm sorry, I know that said that was the last question, but I lied. This is my last question. Because what you said just kind of made me think of it. The sun's setting. We can't do this anymore. We got to go.
We're getting there.
But the last thing is, I'm like one paycheck away from being homeless myself. And a lot of us in the city are. I don't know your financial situation. I don't want to know your situation. But what I do know is there's a lot of us who are praying, who are scared. And I keep seeing all these developments popping up. And they're beautiful, by the way. I don't know what deal you got going on with these developers. But what I do know is I can't afford to live there. And a lot of them look empty. And I think it's only a matter of time before those prices drop, because that's what Ted Costas just told me, because a lot of them are empty.
So I don't know how filled they are. I don't know.
Hold on. My question is, actually, I have more of a detailed question. How would you vote if the council were to bring up inclusionary zoning again? And would you vote on a lower AMI, where it's currently 60%? And it could move from 60% of your, well, maybe not. But I can't afford 60% of my income.
So I understand the challenges. I don't know how any of my children would be able to be in a position to buy a home that I was in a position to.
Right.
I don't know how anybody could be in a position to afford.
How am I supposed to save up if I'm paying $2,000 a month?
I agree. So there's a situation where we have to have more housing because supply will lower the rental prices. I don't know if those developments are half empty. Maybe prices will come down. But I do think we have to build out. We don't have a lot of space. Worcester is a congested city and getting more and more congested. You don't see the tall high-rises you see in other communities where there are availability for people to get reduced rents. We don't seem to have enough of that in Worcester, and I think part of the problem is we have a lot of people from the outside spending a lot of money in Worcester. That's their legal right to do it, but we don't seem to be able to figure out how to keep people from Worcester to stay in Worcester.
Yeah.
So we talked about.
You got to lower the prices so we can afford to stay.
But how, as a government in a society with rules and regulations that's based on
raise the rent on Polo Park.
Capitalism.
Well, why you got to raise it on us?
Well, we got $1 million a year coming from Polo Park. That was the
Make
contract.
it 2.
Well, that's the contract. So, I can't change the contract. You're right. I don't disagree with that. I don't know how people pay rent in some of these places.
Yeah.
I don't. But I do think the supply will help lower the rent. It's not going to lower completely. I do think if we focus more on helping Worcester people keep their places to live so they don't have to become homeless or have to move out of Worcester, that's important too. But in a capitalistic society, we can't tell developers, other than some of the AMI rules and regulations we've made, that they have to make it 100% rent, reduced rent. We can't do that. So otherwise, we would have done it. So there's that balance. You want people to develop because we need tax dollars, but at the same time, we don't want people to not be able to afford where they live. So I see what people get for some apartments, and I see what some of these developers get. I don't think they're mostly people from Worcester renting. It has to be from out of town because I don't see most of the people I know in Worcester couldn't afford that.
Exactly. And to be honest, my family doesn't live here. They live in Pittsburgh. I raised them here, but their mom, who works, I can't exactly where, but she's worked here in Worcester, still works here in Worcester for the past 20 plus years. Had to move to Fitchburg to buy a house because she couldn't afford to stay here in Worcester.
That's disappointing.
And it's tragic. It is more than disappointing because guess what? Guess where I'm going? I'm here because I'm in a very special circumstance that keeps me here. But once that special circumstance doesn't exist anymore, it's very likely that I'm going to have to move out of Worcester too. And I've been here for 41 years, and it's just so tragic. It's really sad.
I agree, because
what can you guys do to help the community that built this place, that is literally the heartbeat of this city, to continue to beat on?
I think we need to provide incentives for people to build more units. Now, some people will say, oh, you're giving developers a break. I don't know how to motivate developers any other way except give them incentives to build more units that are affordable. And that's the key. Supply. The more supply, the rent has to come down. But we can't put a gun to their head and tell them they have to do it. Some developers come in and they don't want to do any of that. And we have no
You don't have to
control.
put a gun to their head. You can tell them, well, then you can't develop here.
But they have a right to develop if they comply with zoning. So we don't have
maybe
that.
we need to change zoning. And with that, I can't. Oh my God, there's so many more questions I gotta ask, but the sun's closing us down.
So maybe
what do you want to say?
So maybe we do have to look at zoning, but I don't believe we should wipe out single-family neighborhoods. But I do believe we should make it easier for people to add on to their existing properties. Maybe a garage becomes another apartment. Maybe there are a lot of carriage houses; they become units. We need to create more supply, and I think going up is one of the ways we create more supply, and we incentivize people to build up and build more units. But if there's a way to force people to build up, if they're in compliance with zoning, or force them to have more units, I'd like to know, because I was on that zoning board for a while myself as a practicing attorney. I think we have very limited ability to force people, developers, to do that. We have to incentivize them.
All right.
You're disappointed this ended.
I'm not disappointed at all. Oh yes, I'm disappointed we can't continue to talk because I have so many more questions.
Well, if I'm fortunate,
I really want to ask about the charter change. Can you give me a real quick answer on that?
I think there should be charter change, but I think it needs to get initiated either by the public or the new council has to take it on. I don't think it's an issue that could be decided by an outgoing council or a council that's going to have a few new members. I think this has to be looked at next term. And I think it's overdue.
I think it's something you'll bring up for me?
Yeah, I think it's overdue.
My man,
If we're
bring it up.
fortunate enough to get
If you're there, and
if
you're
we're fortunate
reelected,
enough to get
you're gonna bring it up
reelected,
for me.
I will bring it
All
up
right.
because I think it's overdue. I do agree with that.
I appreciate you. Mo Bergman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Thank you for staying with me to the sunset because we originally been on a half hour. I'm going to be honest with you. You gave me a half hour. You gave me way more than that. And I just want to say, because I want you to have the last words, I'm going to say this now. Democracy is a beautiful thing. And it's we should be able to have a conversation, we should be able to disagree, and we should be able to leave this bench or wherever we're sitting having these conversations, still loving each other as human beings, as brothers in this life. And I just want to thank you very much for your time.
You're very welcome.
And for taking what I have to say, and I take what you have to say. And with that being said, I want to leave you with the last word. Tell the people who you are, why they should elect you, and where they can find you.
I'm Mo Bergman, number 8 on the ballot. Election day is November 4th. You can vote early at the Worcester Public Library. I think over the last number of minutes, you've seen that I'm genuine. We may not agree on everything, but my heart's in helping people in Worcester do better. And if I'm reelected, I'm going to continue to try to do that.
And how do people get in touch with you?
They could go on bergmanforworcester.com. I'm on Facebook under my name, Mo Bergman. And I'm happy to give out my phone number too, city number 868-5291.
All right, thank you so much, Mo Bergman. I just want to let you guys know, also tune in Sunday for Gemma Kamara. We're going to be talking with her, and then Monday, hold on, let me just double check. Who do I have on Monday? We have Awura. I can't pronounce the last name. My bad, guys. I got to get in here. Man, I can't see it. Do you know what Awura's last name? Sarkadea?
That's how I pronounce it.
Sarkadea. Awura, though, running for mayor. Monday at 3 p.m. followed by nobody yet. I do have an open slot on Monday, so if there's anybody out there, any of you candidates who have not responded to me yet, which there are a little bit, I do have an open slot at 5 p.m., so hit me up for that.
Got an idea. If nobody shows up and you want to talk more, I'll come back.
All right, hey, listen, I'm going to hold you to that. I'll call you. We'll see. But anyway, with all that being said, make sure you tune in all next week. We have 2 candidates per day leading up to the election to let you know who your candidates are, who you can vote for, And just know, and tell me if I'm wrong. Like, voting on a national level, that's fun and everything, right? Voting for the president's a great thing. And it does impact our lives a little bit. But the most important thing that impacts you every day, impacts your schools, impacts your streets, roads, sidewalks, jobs, everything is your municipal elections. So if you're going to vote for anybody, you want to get to your November 4th voting place and vote for your local municipal candidates. So stay tuned and watch who you get to vote for. And make sure you go to worcesterma.gov/vote for everything you need to know as far as your polling locations. And I think we still have one more day to register. Is that right? That's what Ted told me.
Yes.
All right, we still got one more day to register, so go get to it. And you can register online.
And you got Worcester Public Library from tomorrow through Friday, early voting.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, it's your boy Manny and
Mo Bergman.
this is Manny J Media, community delivered. We'll see you real soon. Peace.